Good evening. This is the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting for July 1, 2009. First, join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our public comment period will be from 7:05 to 7:10. First, we have an appointment with Harbor Master Bill Demento to discuss the Harbor Patrol boat. Bill's here tonight to show the board the new Harbor Patrol boat that was recently purchased, and it's right outside the window there.
I'll describe it in a second. I just wanted the board to meet the crew, less one. Fred Hardy, Dave Kent is a deputy harbor master, Fred's an assistant, and Frank Price is an assistant. Missing is Jenna Demento, recently appointed as an assistant. She's in grad school right now out in Oregon, and she'll be back in another week. So she's a little sad she's missing this, but and I miss her too. But we wanted to show this off before we really put it to use. We've been working on this thing for 2 years now. We purchased the engine about 2 years ago for $18,000 and trailer for $3,000. The boat, with monies that we saved over the years, for about $3,000 we bought used a 1975 21-foot Boston Whaler Outrage. We totally restored it with all of our own hours and hard labor, totally equipped it, and you see the product out here in the parking lot. We'll christen her officially tonight, and Frank and Jenna, David and Fred put many evenings and weekends in on this with me, and just made it happen. For us to go before the town and ask for a boat like this outright through taxpayer money would have been over $90,000. Wow. So
how much did you spend? The engine was 18?
The engine was $18,000.
Brand new, right?
Engine was brand new, and engine was $18,000. The motor, the trailer was $3,000, and we probably put another $4,000 or $5,000 into it between electronics and hardware and wiring.
Wow.
And
beautiful.
So she's fully rigged. Some of the town departments donated the LED takedown lights and so on. So total team effort, and really proud of these guys and Jenna, and just wanted to thank them very much for all their hard work. It's a labor of love for sure, and we all enjoy serving the town in our capacity on the water and helping the townspeople.
Bill, it looks like a brand new boat.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Brand new.
Came out
fabulous
came out
job.
great. Came out great. We the reason we went for this hull versus a new hull is this hull works very well. We've got a 1972 that is pretty much beat up pretty bad from marking the river for many years, and you guys have all seen that boat. It's very similar to this one. It's also a 21-foot whaler. It's a 1972. That boat has a very weak structure right now, and it's full of water, but it still survives, and we use it to mark the river. It takes a lot of abuse from the pipes and the buoys and in and out of the boat when we put out 32 river markers. So we'll keep that one going just for that purpose. Keep this one clean for emergency rescue and patrol. And so this one is ready to roll and ready for service, and I figured before we put her in action, I'd bring her down and give you a show. At some point, if you'd all like, we'll take you out on the river and show you the river. I know, Cliff, you're familiar with the river, but if you're all interested, we're happy to meet some night, maybe just after the Greenheads.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of it.
Take us out.
You can hold a rye if the Greenheads are around.
We'll show you the mooring areas in the river. We've got a 3-mile long river, and we don't have to Plum Island Sound. We've got 2 mooring areas out in the Plum Island Sound, and there are roughly about 150 boats now between Pearlie's Marina, private moorings in the river, and private moorings in the Sound. So it's a busy place on weekends. I'm working with the Concom to expand the parking area. It's really tight. The town has grown. We've got a lot more boaters in town. So people get a little anxious on a busy weekend when the Greenheads are flying, trying to launch their boats, as far as trying to park their cars and trailers, and working with the Concom to expand it. We've got plenty of land down there. Perfect use for passive recreation, and I'm sure we'll be able to work it out in due time.
How'd the marking of the river go this year?
Excuse me?
How did the marking of the river go this year?
Perfect.
No problems?
No.
Did it change any from last year?
It did, a couple of changes from last year. The river is, every year changes. I've seen a couple of major changes, channel shifts since I started. Since I've been on the river, I've been on the river since I was 12 years old. But a couple of major channel shifts, and we had another one this year where the channel shifted to a different side. And I expect within 2 years we'll probably see another shift. The sand moves quite a bit year to year, and sometimes when we get a lot of ice, it'll shift a lot more.
Well, thank you. It's a beautiful boat. It really is.
Did a fantastic job. Very good.
No, thank you.
Yeah, really, thank you.
I love it.
It's a lot of hard work, but it's well worth it. At 3 in the morning, when you really need to go get someone,
Yeah.
you need something like this to get there. That's going to run and do everything right.
Yeah.
And because of that, Hal, even on, like Bill said, even on a minus tide, we can still go. Any other vessel, you wouldn't be able to.
Oh, really?
And the Coast Guard has a lot of those life raft type boats.
Yeah.
And they've offered them to us. They're all 25-footers. It would be just too big and too deep a draft for the river at low tide. High tide would be fine.
Yeah.
But it's way more than what we need for the Blue
Right.
Mountain Sound. This allows us to get out at low tide, any weather, or high tide. And with the new camera system, I expect that we'll have a infrared camera, so for nighttime vision here pretty soon. They haven't delivered it yet, but that'll be added to the boat as well. So.
Great.
Very good.
I think all you gentlemen certainly deserve to be commended, along with your daughter. And, wow, I mean, this is what Raleigh used to be, with volunteer labor and people putting time and effort into making the town run better. Today, we don't see so much of that. And to see you people fulfilling that role is really makes us feel good as selectmen, and I hope makes the townspeople feel that you're well worth whatever we spend down there is well worth it. First year I was a selectman, I did go down on the boat out. People don't realize, most people in Raleigh, I mean, I'm not a boater, most people in Raleigh aren't, but people don't realize how much water there really is out there. You think of Raleigh as the marsh, you go up Route 1, you see the Newbury Marsh and all that, but you don't realize how much water is out there. So I commend you all, and I think we ought to write a letter of thanks to each individual, each of the 5 individuals, and still we go on record as commending you for the work you've done and thanking you for what you're doing for the taxpayers and for the citizens of the town of Raleigh.
Make that a
Thank you.
motion.
Great,
I'll make
thank
a
you.
motion, yes.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Bill, how
Thank
many
you.
years is Harbor
Oh, really?
Master now?
What's that?
How many
How
years
many-
is Harbor Master?
1979 I started,
Wow.
and brought Dave on board in 1980. And,
Quite a few years.
Fred and Frank probably pushing
29 years, probably.
a few.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, really? 29, 30 years.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I haven't been quite that long, maybe 20 or so for me. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
You guys must know the river pretty well then, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just don't go tooling down there without knowing what you're looking at, what you're
right.
dealing with, so.
Especially at 3 in the morning in a storm.
Yeah, no, I can,
Right.
I don't even want to imagine that.
E911 comes through with GPS coordinates, so
Yeah.
if I get a call now, they'll give us GPS.
Put it right
plug
there.
it in,
Good, good.
and figure out where they are now, so
Hmm.
it's pretty cool.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great job.
All right.
Thank
well,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you.
They did. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
Have a good summer. It's nice.
Thanks, Fred.
Take care.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you, bye. Nice to meet
Nice to
you.
meet you.
I've known my whole life.
Okay, we have a 7:15 meeting, joint meeting with the Light Board. Until then, I'll take up general business. General business number 1 is letter of resignation from Reserve Dispatcher Roseanne Ferrante. Please accept this letter as formal notification that I am resigning effective immediately from my position as per diem 911 emergency dispatcher with the Raleigh Police Department. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to work with a great department. Sincerely, Roseanne Ferrante. Have a motion to accept with regrets.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. General business number 2 is a request from the Board of Cemetery Commissioners to lift the hiring freeze for the seasonal labor position. The board is asking the Board of Selectmen to lift the hiring freeze so they may hire an additional seasonal labor. The position will help with the grass cutting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as chairman of the Cemetery Commission currently, you probably recall that in the spring, early in the spring, we requested 2 seasonal laborers. And what's really happened is we're in the midst of, we just have part-time laborer over, a supervisor over there has resigned to take a full-time position in the highway department, so we're down a person of 4 hours. We have 2 summer help currently working. One started in May and she finishes up her 2 weeks in the 1st of August, thereabouts. The other one started in June and will work through September, but as you know, the grass has been growing over there. It's nonstop with all the rain we've had. So we're in desperate need of assistance. So that's why we're requesting that we extend the one of the laborers, Tricia McNeil, till November 1st. We're requesting to hire a second part-time person for 18 hours, both of them 18 hours a week until November 1st, because the growing season now pretty much extends through October.
Sure.
And if we can, we're hoping we can hire a replacement for Larry, who's our supervisor over there, and done a great job. But it's just, the job is just becoming much greater than we have help for. Like everything else in Raleigh, the town is growing by leaps and bounds, and you know the part-time positions just aren't able to do the jobs anymore. So this will get us through this year, and then during the winter we're going to have to look at what we'll do for next year. But that's the reason for the request.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motions to hire a seasonal laborer has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'll
The ayes
abstain,
have it.
just thank you.
General business number 3 is a request from RCM Director Janet Morrissey to appoint Roland David Madden II to the position of production technician. We got an email from Janet. I would like to recommend Roland D. Madden, Rowley, to the position of video production technician for Rowley. His ties to the town, various talents, and lifelong interest in photography will make him an asset for the town. Thank you for your consideration.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion to appoint Roland David Madden to the position of production technician has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. 17, we're close enough. 7:15, joint meeting with the Board of Light Commissioners for the purpose of meeting with the following candidates for the vacant Board of Light Commissioners seat: David Levesque, Syed Mochadiro. I'm sorry?
What a
Okay.
shoot.
Michael C. Vaccaro, to discuss and vote to fill the vacant seat. A notice of vacancy notice, a copy of the vacancy notice is attached. Because this is an opening of an elected board, the statute requires both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Light Commissioners to meet jointly to make this appointment. The appointment runs into the annual town election, which will be held on May 12, 2020. I'll call for a motion and a second from the Board of Selectmen to open the joint meeting with the Board of Light Commissioners by a roll call vote.
Give it that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll
Aye,
call.
Robert Snow.
I, Dina Ziv.
Aye, Joe Perry.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
Okay. We've got our roll call vote, so Brian?
Sure. I, Brian DePersia, call for a motion and second for the Board of Light Commissioners to open a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. Make a motion.
So moved.
By roll call vote, I, Brian DePersia.
Mark Cousins.
Okay. The joint meeting is now in session. I'll announce that Michael Vaccaro has withdrawn his name. I'll read the email message from Mr. Vaccaro into the record. I apologize for not notifying you sooner. I'd like to withdraw my name for consideration. for the Rowley Board of Light Commission. I'll commit, however, to offer any assistance I can make to help the town in moving forward and becoming a better municipal utility. I did not know the board meeting's existence before I went to the first one, and going forward, I will try and attend any future meeting as a resident. Since we moved to Rowley, I've been impressed with the reliability, price, and construction practices that the company has implemented. Keep up the good work. It's from Mike Vaccaro. Okay, we'll now review and discuss the letters and resumes submitted by the two individuals. Board members may ask candidates questions to explain why they're interested in serving. The board and will explain. A member of the town board, they will be required to learn and comply with certain state laws, such as the open meeting law, state ethics, and public records law. David, do you want to come up front? No?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
I mean, I heard there was an opening and two people told me to put my name in. You gotta have 3 members on the board. And, so I did, and then I guess you got a couple other gentlemen, which is good. I've been on the board before. I've been an inspector here since 1995. I'm all for the people, the rate, to keep the rate down. We have a good crew. They go out and fix something, it's fixed right, and they don't go back in trouble calls. I mean, couldn't ask for a better crew, better, department, and being a commissioner, we like to get involved with the manager, and I think that's important because you want to make sure nothing's going on that you don't know of. You got to be involved like that, and just here to help out the light board. And that's basically what I'm doing.
Okay, state law requires public officials to learn about state ethics law and to take an online ethics test. Would you do that?
I've done that with the
Right.
inspector.
Yeah, you're already doing that.
Do that every 2 years.
You're familiar with the open meeting law?
Yep.
And if appointed, you will need to be available to attend the Board of Light Commissioners meeting, which are typically held once a month on Wednesday evenings. Are you available to attend?
Wednesday evenings, yep.
Municipal light departments in Massachusetts operate under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164. Are you familiar with the statute?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Light commissioners.
Syed.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
The light commissioners have
Oh,
any?
sure. Go ahead. You have any questions?
I don't. We went through a process where we had a Q&A, I think it was June 12th, with the Board of Light Commissioners at the library. And the 3 candidates came in, and we ran them, Mr. Snow was there as well. And we ran them through a series of questions, and at that time, and then we went back, Commissioner First and I, and we had another meeting to discuss the candidates again. So I think we beat it up pretty good.
Okay, all right. Syed.
I agree, yeah. We had the opportunity to like Mark said,
Yeah.
to have a prior discussion with them, to have a good Q&A. I think that was valuable.
Okay. Okay. Syed, did I pronounce your
So
first
yeah,
name?
that's correct. So yeah.
I'm not going to try your last name. Why are you interested in the position?
Well, we moved to Raleigh almost about 4 years ago, and it's a very nice community, and I've been impressed by the work of the utility. I've been in the business of the power sector for more than 10 years now. I'm currently the manager for regulatory affairs and licensing for an owner and operator of hydropower stations. So that's what I do full time, and I've been a consultant for over 10 years in the power sector, and I feel like I'd like to use this expertise and this experience accumulated and put it to service to the community. So that's really why I wanted to be involved, just to be able to tap into my experience and try to make a difference. That's really the purpose.
Are you familiar with the state ethics law?
No, I was not, no.
Okay, so you have to take a test once a year, and there's certain things that you gotta learn about. You have to learn the law, basically, but,
Okay,
would you be willing to do that?
yes,
And similarly, the open meeting law?
right. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, okay, so it's something, and there's materials to read and, and you'll need to be available to attend the Board of Light Commissioners meeting, which are held once on Monday evenings. Be available for those?
Wednesday.
Wednesday evening, sorry.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, and these meetings are typically televised or video recorded by Rowley Community Media. Do you have any concerns with that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay. Municipal light departments in Massachusetts operate under the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164. Are you familiar with the statute?
Not really.
Yeah, okay, well, you'd...
I have the right to catch up.
Yes. Does the board have any other questions of Syed?
Say, graduate from the Sorbonne, and you graduated the Sorbonne in Paris?
Yes, well, yeah, well, that's where I started my degree, yeah.
Then you went to Dauphine,
Dauphine,
and then Brandeis.
right, that's correct.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
You went to London Economics International?
Yes, that's my current employer. So I worked for London Economics for about 10 years. Then I went to work for Whittaker Technologies. That was after they were spun off from Waste Management, Waste Management company. And then I went back to London Economics and I worked for one of their clients, the owner and operator of those assets that I mentioned.
Have you had any experience with battery technology?
Yeah, well, more on the as a modeler, so basically being able to understand the way the technology works and model the behavior of the technology. So we've done that for some cases in Massachusetts for transmission project that involve siting approval before the board. So in this capacity, I was working with the utility to develop an alternative to the transmission line, which would be battery storage or a combination of battery storage and solar design installation.
You familiar with the Sterling project in Massachusetts?
Sterling project?
Yeah, they introduced batteries out in Sterling probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. Town of Sterling, I'm sorry.
The town of Sterling. Yeah.
Any other questions? No?
No, I attended the June 12th meeting.
Okay.
Just one question, Mr.
Just as an observer.
You're both aware that this is a position till the next election, and you'll have to run for re-election if you so desire at that time.
Yeah, good. Does the Board of Light Commissioners have a recommendation for us?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a brief statement. I commend both the individuals here. I think they have a wealth of both industry and personal experience as far as bringing a good experience to the board. I think that as far as most relevant experience, I would recommend Saeed as far as having current and future perhaps guidance on the dynamics of both our regional and state energy policies, initiatives, and market experiences. I feel as though he has a good grasp on what is actually happening in the industry these days with regards to a very dynamic energy market, which we have in this area. I think he has a strong will to participate and eager to get involved with the town, and my recommendation is for the board to appoint Saeed.
So again, we had a good Q&A with all the candidates, and it was a great back and forth. We learned a lot about all three, two of which are here this evening. And what it came down to when we looked at it, we had talked about what it takes. One of the things that we discussed was what it takes the core competencies to run a utility, a municipal utility. Case of Rowley, we have 3,500 meters, okay? Some of the regulatory items that Said had mentioned, we have contracts with both Massachusetts Municipal Wholesale Electric Company as well as E&E Energy New England that monitor the markets for us, do those types of activities for us. We hire the experts, the best in the business, for that. In that case, I think it's a little bit of overlap with Said's skill set. Really sharp guy, very intelligent guy, and I appreciate him for coming in. What I'm looking for most is what Mr. Levesque had said. Let's keep the lights on at a reasonable rate, and keep the power flowing to us for the meters that we have here in town. A lot of the core responsibilities, more than 95% of running a municipal utility is that. The tangential items are the tangential items, and we hire consultants to do that on our behalf. And I've been fully privileged enough to work with some of the best of them through both Enwick and E&E. They provide services to smaller and larger utilities as well. So to that end, I'm going to recommend Mr. Levesque.
Okay. There's only two of you, right? So it's a split vote? Well,
I just came off the board, so I have a 6-year perspective of where the board utility is heading, what's needed, and my feeling is right now, expertise, I think Mr. Said would be the candidate of the two, and just looking and having come off the board, the technical aspect of it, where the light department's going, I feel that Mr. Said would be an asset to the board.
anyone else have anything to say? Or should we just have a vote?
I think that they're both great candidates.
Right.
And I appreciate them both coming here tonight. I agree with Bob. I think that Said.
Okay, want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to Said.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay,
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
It's nice to see new people stepping up to volunteer. I think that's critical. I mean, it's, both candidates are well qualified. Mr. Levesque's been on the board many years and involved in town government. Said is new and been here 4 years and obviously interested in contributing. I think we need to really look at getting new people involved. And at this point, it's for eight-month position, so that if Mr. Levesque or anybody else would like to run, assuming that this gentleman would like to run for re-election, I think the Light Board at this point needs to be looking forward. And there's a lot of things happening between what we had with the solar power out on Weathersfield Street and new contracts and the power grid. From what little I know about it, seems to be changing big time, and I think the more expertise we have in that direction, I have great faith that the manager of the light department can function on a daily basis and run the department on a daily basis, and I think with some expertise in looking forward, I think would be really helpful. So.
Okay, want to make a motion?
We have a
I
motion.
made a motion.
Okay,
I
David
seconded it.
sorry.
That's okay.
All right, roll call vote?
Ira Snow?
I, Dina Zev.
Aye, Cliff Pierce?
Hi, Joe Perry.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
We're approving.
Yes.
Approving.
Say.
Gentlemen.
Well,
Guys got to vote.
We should probably vote for the record as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
Cited.
Yes.
Right now on
Yeah.
that motion.
Brian DePersian, second.
okay. Syed, congratulations.
Thank you.
David, sorry, David. But Once the appointments are made, I'll call for a motion and a second by the Board of Selectmen to close the joint meeting with the Board of Light Commissioners by a roll call vote.
Give me that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Roll call vote.
I, Dina Ziv.
Aye, Robert Snow.
Aye, Cliff Pierce.
I, Joe Perry.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
Hi, Mark Cousins.
You guys have to have a motion to close your,
I move to adjourn. I'll move to close, or I'll move to adjourn.
I second the motion to close the joint meeting and adjourn. I, Brian Pershing.
Mark Cousins.
Okay, the joint meeting is now closed. Syed will need to be sworn in by the town clerk, right next door. Before he can participate in a light board meeting, Amy will prepare the official action notice, document of the vote tomorrow, we'll mail it to you. This notice needs to be submitted to the town clerk, so, thank you, congratulations.
thank you for coming in. Thank you, Dave.
Question, when's the next select board meeting? Scheduled for the
Next
10th.
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
July 10th.
You just need to get sworn in before July 10th.
Okay.
And the time.
Set the
We'll
updates.
post it, I don't know when it's gonna be.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Hey, Matt.
Congratulations.
Hi, Matt.
Joe Perry, correct? See you later. Thank you.
Okay, we have a 7:45 continued public hearing on a poll hearing application. Until then, I'll take up new business. New business number 1 is a notice of intent to sell Chapter 61B land from Bruce E. Tompkins and Sarah Tompkins and Stephanie Desjardins of approximately 4.39 acres of land as identified as lots 1, 2, and 3 on Assessor's Map 11, Parcel 59, located at 600 Weathersfield Street. The notice of intent to sell went to the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, the Open Space Committee, and the Board of Assessors. None of these boards indicated desire for the town to pursue this parcel and are recommending that the Board of Selectmen vote to waive its right of first approval so that the owners can pursue their plans for the land. Jill, you want to say anything on this?
Sure. Jill Mann here on behalf of Bruce Tompkins, in connection with the request for this board to waive its right of first refusal. Basically, we have proceeded and secured an A&R plan to divvy up the 3 lots. In addition to that, we did create a rear parcel that is going to be conveyed, and I believe that Mr. Baslak has knowledge of that with regard to discussions about what the wide parcel is going to be. It's mostly going to the front. And we did provide to you copies of the purchase and sale agreements. One was for the single lot, lot 1, and the other purchase and sale agreement was for the other 2 lots, lots 2 and 3. We have notified the assessor that we will be, if this board votes to waive its right of first, right to acquire the property essentially, that we will then be in to secure the amount of rollback taxes. We'll pay it for a 5-year period, and then on a going forward basis, the properties will be taxed in the normal course.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
These are all going to be single-family house lots, is that what I gather?
Yes, they are. And they actually, I think they've already even gone through the notice of intent process.
Is that a request for confirmation?
Yes.
Yes, and two of the parcels also needed stormwater management permitting besides the disturbance.
Right. So you're in favor of granting this request?
My commission has responded favorably to my recommendation in regards to that the property had not previously been identified for acquisition, as well as Attorney Mann was also pointing out the fact that the way the property has been subdivided, it leaves the rear portion of the parcel, which has a section of the Mill River flowing through it, and has riverfront and associated wetland resource areas with that water course on that rear parcel, which they also configured that lot so that it has a 10-foot corridor that comes up onto Weathersfield Street, so there's the ability for access from a public right-of-way. Currently, it is not contiguous to any other conserved open space, but that is the most environmentally sensitive portion of the parcel. And at the point in time when the commission receives a specific request for consideration of accepting that parcel, I will be able to provide a recommendation, which I believe will be favorable based on my initial assessments of the property.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you. Have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion to waive the right of first refusal is made in second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Very much appreciate your
Thank
time.
you, good luck.
New business number 2 is to discuss Comcast cable license renewal. The Comcast cable television license is up for renewal. Town Council Tom Mullen has set up a meeting with me, Debbie, Janet, and the Comcast representative for next week. The board should vote to authorize me to work with Tom, Debbie, and Janet on the license renewal.
Thank you for that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. New business number 3 is discuss parkland acquisitions and renovations for the community's grant program. We are looking into a possible grant to help fund the ball field construction at Veterans Field. The PARC grant is distributed by the Massachusetts Department of Conservation Services and can be used to cover costs associated with the construction and construction oversight of the project. We are still investigating the details of the grant and its timeline. It is possible the grant would delay the construction start date, and that it may not be appropriate for the field construction at this stage in the project. This is a quick turnaround for the grant it's due July 11th. However, in the event that we do submit the application, the Board of Selectmen will need to vote to authorize me to sign the grant program application form once completed, which will name Debbie Egan as the project contact.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've been working with the staff here in the office and Tim Southall on the Recreation Committee to develop this land. It's been going slow. We've had run into a variety of roadblocks, et cetera. But at this point, we have moved the tree that we agreed to move when we bought the land. Mayor Tree Service came up about, I'm going to say 2-3 weeks ago.
We moved it?
They moved the tree, moved it to a new location. And so far, so good. The water department says they're watering it every day, or not every day, but
Yeah.
once a week. So we're hoping that it'll survive. It's, it may or may not. It's about 30, I don't know, maybe 30 feet high or 40 feet. So we've done that. We're in the process now of going out to bid. We've got the bid to put a well in for irrigation purposes. We're going to have, when that's completed, we're going to have to run power over to that. I'm going to get together with Larry Berger from the school and see if I can coordinate where they're getting their power from, then run power over to the pump. We'll need a power to the pump to irrigate the fields. After that, we'll be going to construction. Go out to bid for the final design. We've got the designs all done. Meanwhile, we got a chance to get this grant, which will help fund some of it anyway, if not a fairly sizable portion. So this come up at the last minute, the availability of the grant. We'd like to put in for it. Right now, we're using all CPC money, and if we could give a little break to the CPC, that would be great. We may get it, we may not. We'd be in competition with other towns and cities of the Commonwealth. So that's where it stands, and we're requesting that the board vote to allow you to sign this so we can submit the grant, and we'll have to wait and see if in fact we get it.
Okay. So we want to make a motion? Wait a minute.
How many sports would be played on the field? Is it just single sport or multiple sports?
Well, right now we've designed a soccer field and Little League baseball field. The Little League baseball field the purpose is to replace the one out on Havel Street by the town well field, which we have to get rid of, and for safety purposes, we'd like to get rid of. But in addition, with the land that's available over there, they play lacrosse, and I don't know if they do flag football in Raleigh, but any of those big field sports. But primarily, it's at this point, we're designing a Little League baseball field to replace the other field and a full-size soccer field, which we are badly in need of for a lot of kids in this town are playing soccer. So we did lose part of the land. It turned out that we thought the entire piece of the land was going to be buildable, but there's a sizable portion, or about, I don't know, a quarter of it, turned out to be wetland, which we couldn't tell from the surface, but when they dug in, when they did the soil testing, it turned out that there was some wetland over there. But in spite of that, we've got two good-sized playing fields we're going to be able to use, and that's what we need to develop.
Ryan?
Yep. For those who don't know, is this behind Pine Grove? Where is this
Yes.
location? Okay.
Behind Pine Grove School, we got right now, if you go behind Pine Grove, there's the two fields that are together. There's a row of trees, and it's the field that's beyond that row of trees, and eventually that'll be flattened out and made into, the soccer field will encompass the fields that are there, plus a portion of the new land. Then this Little League field's gonna go down towards the back portion of that new piece of land that we got from the Gwynn family. That's why we had to move that tree, because it was gonna be right in the middle of the soccer field, and it wouldn't be a good thing to do.
Okay, can I have a motion? Do I have one already? I can't remember.
I'll give you the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, new business number 4 is a related topic. They've discussed a little of it. Discuss ball field development at Veterans Field and award well contract. In order to construct the new ball fields at Veterans Field, a new well needs to be installed that will service the irrigation system. We requested quotes from 3 companies to install a 6-inch wide well with an estimated depth of 300 feet, an irrigation pump with an output of 30 to 40 gallons a minute, irrigation pressure, and an irrigation pressure tank. One response was received from Vieira Artesian Well in the amount of $19,030. The total project cost may be higher or lower depending on the final cost of the well. In order to move forward with a well installation, the Board of Selectmen will need to vote to award the contract to Vieira Artesian Well.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up a little bit on the information, when we went out to bid, we used a 300-foot level, just pulled a number of footage out of the air so all the companies could vote, and then we asked for per foot above or below that figure, so it's a bid figure. So in the end, if we have to go down 500-600 feet, then there will be increased cost. But it all depends where they strike enough water. If anybody that's got a well knows that we drill until we find
Right.
a source of water that will supply the irrigation.
Is it 19,000 to get us to 300 feet?
Yeah.
Is that the idea? But it'll be lower or higher than that depending?
Could be lower or higher depending on
Okay.
how deep they really have to go.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll give you that motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Bernie?
Question, if the water comes in at 100 feet, does that mean the price is lower?
Right.
Is that how the contract is written?
Okay, we have our poll hearing. At 7:45, we're close enough. This is a continued public hearing on an application submitted by Rowley Municipal Lighting Plant and Verizon to locate a new pole at 139 Weathersfield Street. The Rowley Municipal Light Department has withdrawn its request. I'll read the email from Light Manager Matt Brown. Good afternoon, Debbie. I'm writing to inform you that RMLP is withdrawing its request to set a new pole and anchor in front of 139 Weathersfield Street, parcel 017033. We will use existing poles to guide support the new pole at 33 Weathersfield Street. Poles 32/1 and 32/2 Saunders Lane riser pole will be sufficient to hold the lateral to West Docks pasture. I'll be meeting tonight. If anyone has any questions, please. Okay, so request has been withdrawn. No, nothing to do but close the motion for a public hearing. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll give you that motion.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I'll take up old business. Larry?
Oh, Larry's here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, we have a couple of issues here. The first one is mold. The contractor has found mold in the east wing of the building. Pink & Company's provided Joe with an estimate of $66,000 for mold abatement and $66,000 to replace the walls and insulation. Came out as exactly the same amount?
Actually, it didn't.
Okay.
I have received an updated price for the replacement in the entire east wing. And that amount is $70,560.
Okay, $70,560.
$560.
That's what you're looking for tonight.
Yes, or what has been issued is a construction change directive, and it's for that value. We'll still go through and totally vet the numbers, but on the the outside number right now is the 70,000.
It's going to slow down the project at all?
We're trying to have it not
Yeah.
slow down the project. It's the entire perimeter, but for the gym, I guess it's the entire perimeter of the classroom area, and working to minimize its total impact.
Okay.
That's why some of the numbers aren't firm, but they just, this last number just came in a couple hours ago.
Right, okay. Well, Debbie has notified the insurance company. The board needs to ratify a total of, well, $132 for the abatement and replacement of the affected area. So what is the total altogether?
Let's see. 137. $137,271.
Okay, some, mold has to be replaced. We have no discretion about this, right? So.
No,
Right.
in fact,
Yeah.
we've being proactive. A bunch of it is gone. It's been contained, removed, and the walls are waiting for the next step.
This is mold that was in existence before the project started.
Correct. This is all a pre-existing condition that was unforeseen because of the nature of where it was presented. It was found under the drywall between the windows and the unit heaters, but it was also subsurface of the. It was on the drywall mud that was also over the drywall behind the paint, so it never presented on the exterior of the walls themselves. When they ripped out ceilings, it presented along the wall angle, along the perimeter, but it never blatantly showed on the exterior walls in any of the classrooms.
How many square feet?
I don't have the square footage. I can tell you it's 334 linear feet per floor. Thank you.
Just to make a comment, because of our weekly construction meeting on Fridays, that the issue was brought up Friday, and I, by the authority voted by the board, I approved them to go ahead with the mold so that they could start working on it starting that Friday night. So they worked on it the weekend.
there was an initial survey that was done, and it looked to be more contained to the lower east level, but during last week, and when they did further demolition of, or I should say, they did the remaining demolition on the old heating units along the perimeters, it became more apparent that there was a bigger issue.
Mhm.
And it was further investigated, tested, and showed the same type of black mold that the first test showed.
Mother Nature between mold and termites is
Yeah.
putting a crimp in our project.
Yes.
The unforeseen conditions, I think,
Yeah, no,
as I've stated
yeah,
here
no,
before,
we can-
are the bulk of the additional expenditures.
That's what happens when you open up old buildings.
Yeah, right,
It's the
right,
kind
when
of
you
thing
rent.
to find, and it's
Yeah.
critical.
Timing couldn't be worse, but
Okay,
Give you a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Brian?
I have a question, yes. So as far as the identification of the mold, prior to the construction efforts, was there any air quality testing performed as far as mold detection and or asbestos that would have kind of presented this or alerted anybody to knowing that this was present in the walls?
there was
Or airborne?
as part of the early investigative work, there was a complete study done which did uncover asbestos and other asbestos-containing products. It did not flash for mold.
Okay. So it sounds reasonable to say that it was always contained within the walls.
Correct.
Not a breathable
Yeah,
hazard.
Not being in those spaces on a daily basis. I can't totally answer that with certainty, but in terms of when we got in there and started demolishing, it didn't become apparent until ceilings were out and mechanical equipment was removed.
And a baseline monitoring, air quality was done. And then there will be another testing at the end when all the material is removed. It gets tested again and the air quality gets tested as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, you made a motion?
Yeah, I'll give you a motion to approve the.
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the next issue is the entranceway. We voted on June 3rd to approve the change order for the Pine Grove School entryway. We voted at that time to approve the change order under protest because the change was necessitated due to issues with the site design. Tom Mullen, on behalf of the Selectmen, notified Doris Whittier. Letter is attached. The change order is being funded through the owner's contingency line rather than the construction contingency line, which will make these costs ineligible for MSBA reimbursement as an owner's contingency. Tom has informed us that if the work is designated as an architectural supplemental instruction, or ASI, then the cost will be eligible for reimbursement. Tom suggests the board request Doran Whittier to reclassify this work as an ASI, and that the town and Doran Whittier set up a tolling agreement by which the town will withdraw the claim letter without prejudice, and both sides will reserve their rights to pursue claims at the end of the project. If the board is in agreement with Tom's advice, then the board needs to take a vote on the action. Larry can provide further information on the ASA designation.
ASI.
ASI.
It's an architectural supplemental instruction, and it just gives them further instruction on how to proceed with finishing the entrance.
So you're aware of this? I mean,
Yes, it was. Right now, it's not as a change order. It's just as a project cost proposal that covers costs on both sides of the project. Where we're at now is dealing with where to put the expense in terms of the direction of the elements of the corrective or the correction. It will be done as supplemental instruction to instruction that's already been issued.
okay, so the money will come out of the owner's, the
No,
contractor?
It'll come out of the GMP contingency
Right.
funds for the category.
Right.
If I could just make one comment in answer to Mr. Peterson's question, the light pole, moving the light pole, which has already been discussed with, what's his name?
Matt?
No.
Mark?
Mark. That
Oh,
we,
Mark,
that was included in the cost of the project.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Out by the street.
The
You're
value
talking out by
that's-
the street.
Yeah, the value that's been determined includes the electrical work associated with moving the light pole, touching up the landscaping, and then taking care of the geometry, construction that doorway will give.
And I already saw that Mark has discussed it with Tom Hood.
Tom, and I also, before I went away on vacation, he and I chatted about the project and what was going to be necessary.
So I'd like to give that motion to approve the, what Tom had to say about removing the letter and.
Right, so Tom's gonna draft a tolling agreement, that's what he called it, which will draw the claim letter without prejudice to us, and both sides, the town and Dore and Whittier, will reserve their right to pursue claims at the end of the project.
I'll give you that
That'll
motion.
take care of the letter, which was a problem for Dore and Whittier, while at the same time protecting the town. Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve the tolling agreement has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Anything else you want to add?
Larry, I got a question for
Yeah.
you. Unrelated, related but unrelated. We're putting in a well to irrigate the fields out back at the end, at the far end of the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
We need power.
Okay.
So all the school power goes underground, obviously.
Correct.
So I was looking for you last week, you were on vacation, but I talked to Matt Brown at the light department, and he was gonna get in touch with you, but my concern is there a way, how do you get your power to your trailers, the construction trailers?
We're underground. We ran, or I should say the contractor ran a conduit, and we feed it from the.
Is there a way when the project's done that we can somehow, not at your expense obviously, but tap into that underground wire? And then the other thing that Mark Bixby, who's no longer with the light department, but he happened to be at the building that day, said that as part of the construction, there was supposed to be power fed out to the old pump.
Correct. That we are, as part of the project.
Well, what I requested,
backfeeding
right,
the existing well.
But what our request is that we're going to decommission that well.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to look at running the power out, instead of running it over there, running it to the new location, which would be behind the parking lot, or at the end of that gravel parking lot area. So,
okay.
If you could take a look at that and, and give Debbie a call, and I'll come over and talk with you or whatever to see how we do it, what the cost might be, or whatever. I don't know. That's, you know.
If you're going to abandon the existing well,
yeah,
then the power that we have running out to it,
yeah,
we can change its location, and not,
okay.
because it sounds like it's a shorter run.
I think it probably is.
And
I'm not going to commit you to anything tonight, but I just wanted to hit you with that. As long as you hit tonight, it works out good. I haven't got to chase you around. But if you could come up with something and let Debbie know or whatever, and I'll come over and be glad to sit down with you and with Matt Brown at the light department, just so that when you guys are closing up your project, we'll run the power the other way. If we can do it underground, that'd be great. If we have to put a pole or two up there.
Yeah,
that's fine too.
Right now there is a conduit that runs under the existing pavement to the trailers.
Okay, good.
And then from there it was going to carry on.
Go the other way, and
to,
it might work out just fine.
To feed out
okay, great.
The field. So
that's
if
good
we have
news.
to go in a little bit different direction, it shouldn't be a big.
All right, no, that's great.
A big change.
All right, we'll be in touch then.
Okay, and I'll alert everyone.
Okay.
Because they're starting to dig up out back.
Right, for the hydrant.
They were working on the septic system.
Okay.
existing chambers today, so they're,
I believe the soccer games over there are all done, right? There was about a week's worth of soccer where there was with you guys closing the park on
Correct.
top. I think that's all been,
yeah.
I haven't heard any complaints, so it must have worked out all right.
And I haven't heard of any
No.
requests for any additional.
No, I think they're all set.
We haven't either.
No, it worked
It was
out.
the
Nobody
playoffs.
complained, so we're all happy.
Good.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, you got anything to add, or?
I mean, unless there's any other questions about what's happening construction-wise out there.
Pretty much on schedule?
Yeah, you know, we're pushing very hard, or they're pushing very hard for, you know, for the 23rd.
Yeah.
You know, events like La Mole don't help the situation.
I'm sure.
We're getting cooperation out of the weather, so.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you very
Andrew.
much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Andrew. Okay, Brent. We have a meeting with Conservation Agent Brent Baselak to discuss the following: the donation of land off Kathleen Circle, an update on National Pollution Discharge Elimination System and Town Stormwater Plan. Okay, with regard to the donation of land off Kathleen Circle, the Conservation Commission has voted to accept the 23.9 acres of land off Kathleen Circle from Gateway Trust. The Conservation Commission is asking the selectmen to vote and sign the deed tonight. The deed must be notarized. Brent will serve as a notary. I have the original in my meeting packet. Anything you want to add to that?
No, thank you very much, Chairman Pearson, members of the Board of Selectmen. Initiated by Mr. Coughlin, one of the trustees of Gateway Realty Trust of 1997, I think it is. They requested a zoning change, which was on an article at the last town meeting, which did receive approval. As part of that proposal, they generously made an offer to add to the town's conservation holdings. Specifically, the property proposed is adjacent to Hunsley Hills Conservation Area, and is also some of the most challenging yet beautiful forests that I've seen in the town of Rowley because of the steep slopes. It's definitely a piece of property that you would shake your head and think that anyone would possibly propose to develop it and try to put something where you've got slopes going like this, and you almost basically need to rope yourself from tree to tree in order to...
But at one time, someone did make that proposal, right?
Yes, one time someone did make that proposal. And again, Mr. Coughlin, through his representatives, showed every bit of consideration for the residents of Kathleen Circle by proposing to have the conservation acreage come down and basically protect, I think there's a 200-foot distance. Yeah, forgive me, I'm sitting here holding a plan, which I should, if I may lay it on your table, I'm gonna have to speak it under the microphone. Now, the contour lines represent changes in elevation, so as you can see, the area that's proposed has a lot of contour lines that are very close together. That means that it's kind of steep. But it is very well forested. It's a very beautiful piece of property, and it certainly adds to the protection of the Hunsley Hills area. It's a little bit below where the electric transmission lines already run over Hunsley Hills. But as I mentioned, he provided protection by configuring the lot so that there's a good distance again of woods, and it transitions into forested wetlands that is also contiguous to conservation land that's previously been preserved as part of the ice pond development, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was Kathleen Circle. But anyway, there's a number of contiguous holdings of quote-unquote backland that has previously been protected for the town and under the stewardship of the Conservation Commission. This provides some continuity. Joining that, it provides protection and buffering for the residents of Kathleen Circle. And one of the aspects on this, though, that there is going to be a proposal for development, but the development is going to be solely the joining of the water transmission line to allow for a loop of our water distribution system. Presently, there is no connection from Newburyport Turnpike, where the Forest Ridge project is. Then you would have to go cross-country, which the proposal is for a cross-country main that would allow looping of the water distribution system by tying in to the water main that's on Kathleen Circle and goes into Christopher, which I'm not going to speak and not profess expertise in water distribution, but I'm told that dead-end lines are the antithesis of trying to keep the pipes clean and rust-free, and that therefore looping is always considered advantageous, as well as the fact that if you have something happen to your trunk line over on Newburyport Turnpike, this allows connectivity to another part of the water distribution system, so you don't get sections of the line that have no connection to any other part of the distribution system. That is specifically configured to go through an easement that will not allow anything else. It will not allow access, it will not allow a roadway. It's solely for the purposes of putting that water distribution line through there and making a connection, again, as a benefit to the town of Rowley and the citizens in our water department.
Yes, proposed 20-foot wide water main easement, so that's what's been
They're working on an application right now to put forward to the Conservation Commission, because there are regulated wetland resource areas.
That's something that was proposed when Forest Ridge first went in.
Yeah,
Cliff.
right.
Cliff and I were on the board
Yeah.
at that particular
Yeah.
time.
A long time ago.
A long time ago. I would say probably, what, 14 years ago
Yeah,
at least.
probably.
And, that was proposed at that particular time. Otherwise, there would have to be another line to come down Route 1.
Yeah, this is much preferable, yeah.
Much preferable.
Okay, this is great.
So with that, I would hope and offer a recommendation from the Conservation Commission for the Board of Selectmen to sign, authorizing
Okay.
that example.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Well, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, sign.
Brent, while we're signing, I got a question for you. We've got the stormwater retention pit up at the ball field for police fire project.
Okay.
I assume it hasn't been cut, so I assume we're, as part of the program, we're required to cut that. The grass is gonna be 18 inches high.
Yes, it can be mowed. One can make the decision, though, to only mow it like twice or 3 times a
Right.
year. It does not have to be kept as a quote-unquote manicured.
So, I mean, we can cut it, and
Oh,
we
yes.
should cut it.
Yes.
All right, because that.
At least twice a year to discourage different things like noxious
Right.
shrubbery, multiflora, rose, or things like that getting in there, but also just to discourage woody stem vegetation.
I'm gonna check with the contractor, because they cut the regular lawns up there 3 times, but nobody's cut that field, so I don't know if it's their responsibility for the first few times, or whether it's ours, so we'll check on that, but thank you.
Are we done, Brent, or?
No.
Well,
Yeah, he's got
if
to
you
notarize.
signed everything, I would love to
If he's got to notarize.
stamp it, mark it with B, and put it in the oven and all that good stuff.
He also has national pollution.
And if I may, also request your signature in my logbook. folder there, so if you want to keep that so I won't wrinkle it, and I'll retrieve it tomorrow. Thank you very much for signing the log.
Okay, you're gonna give us an update on the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System?
If I may.
Yeah.
So, Tuesday, July 9th, at the start of the Conservation Commission hearing, we're going to request for public input and basically introduce to the public the stormwater management plan for the town of Rowley. And previously, I've talked to you folks about stormwater, and the top sheet is going to seem a little redundant, because it is. It basically outlines the 6 different minimum control measure components that go into a stormwater management plan for the town. And this is a challenging document, and I was thinking of, instead of jumping into the details, because again, I've shared this with you before, the public education, public participation, which is why we're having the meeting at the start of the commission's meeting, illicit discharge detection, management of construction site runoff, management of post-construction site runoff, and good housekeeping of municipal operations. Those are all components, but you need to have a plan. And the way to approach anything is to definitely try to have a well thought out plan that's tailored to your locale. Part of the tailoring is I wanted to show you the sheet that's attached to it, which is an 11 by 17 sheet that I recently came across. So why do we worry about stormwater? Well, we worry about stormwater because it's actually a transport mechanism. It's a fluid that by itself, when it falls out of the sky, it's basically perfectly fine and innocuous. But what can happen is when you have any activities such as a construction site, and this is an illustration of a single-family residence construction site. Now, it's got a few more activities going on the site itself than you might normally see. But the idea is that when any earth is disturbed and the vegetation is removed in the activity of construction and development, you have a bunch of soil particles that are not bound together and protected by anything anymore. They don't have vegetative cover that's locking them in place. They may be graded, and while they're in that kind of loose, unconsolidated state, we get some of these downpours that it can occur, dropping a ½ an inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain in a couple of hours, in an hour if we're unlucky, but hopefully over a period of time, and that starts moving those particles. And then how they earn the connotation of being quote-unquote bad is the fact that they start doing things like filling up our catch basins. They can be transporting other stuff along with them that isn't considered good, high quality, actual pollutants that can be carried into our wetlands and our streams. And we know that our streams and water courses around here all go into the Great Marsh. And this area is known for a highly productive shell fishery, or whatever. So water quality impacts up gradient, upland, can have a very deleterious effect against what is a very high quality resource here, such as a shell fishery. But also streams, when you think about streams and you think about fish in the streams or frogs or whatever, none of those creatures like to have suspended sediment in the water. It clogs their lungs, it can make it very difficult for them to breed, it can make it very difficult for them to forage, as well as the fact that that sediment getting into water courses can then change how that stream behaves. It can exacerbate flooding, It can do things such as that. So I just wanted to show as an illustration that there's a number of recommendations on this sheet. 10 of them, they might not be appropriate to every residential construction project, but more than likely they are. And in fact, I learned something when I accessed this sheet too, and I'm using this as a guide, and this is one of the public outreach components that we're possibly going to utilize. Because again, it's not geared to large development. This isn't meant for shopping center type or commercial projects. It's meant for your normal single-family residential construction that probably needs to think about a few things. We're all pretty well acquainted with erosion control and putting up those barriers to keep the loose dirt going. But there's other little things in here that help make the community a better place. The crushed, number 8, the crushed stone entrance exit pad to try and keep soils and mud and loose stone from being tracked out onto the roadway where it can get thrown up, or it can also, like I said, clog catch basins. There's also the management of waste materials. Any construction site generates waste. Lots of times they will have a dumpster type thing. Those need to be maintained and controlled. And then there's the other things, such as a really common type thing that we've started to require in our stormwater permits, and that is having sanitary facilities available for the contractors, so they aren't doing things that they shouldn't be doing. As you start getting in closer proximity to other residences, you need to take appropriate controls for sanitation. And so I just thought I'd show you an example of one of the public outreach, because there's different audiences that we need to reach, and one of those audiences is the developer community that's working here in Raleigh. So just an example of some of the literature pieces that we're planning on incorporating in this plan, and one of the aspects of the plan that shows the educational component, because if you don't start educating folks about proper site management, then instead of just letting things happen as they may happen and getting complaints, this is a proactive way to try and address and educate everyone on how to appropriately control stormwater on a site that could be a problem. Thank you very much.
Brett, one question for you. When erosion controls are put in place, the round bats or hay bales or whatever, at what point are they taken down? I know there's a lot of work sites. Seems like those things never leave. They just kind of deteriorate and cause problems. I just wonder, is there a time frame that we're allowed to take them down?
There is a time frame, and if the project has a permit that's been issued within the last 15 years of my tenure in the town, there's a requirement for them to be taken down once I've inspected the site and verified that everything's stabilized. And stabilized usually means appropriate vegetative cover, usually minimum 75% to 85% vegetative cover, i.e. grown grass. I just had a question last week. Someone was asking me about, well, can I just put the tackifier down? I'm drawing a blank now, but when they what the heck's that called? Hydroseeding, thank you. When they do the hydroseeding, I'm like, well, no, that's temporary in itself. That's just meant to kind of keep things together, to let the grass germinate, and have then the grass root system lock the earth in place. Right. So in order to get a project completion permit from the Conservation Commission, they need to have demonstrated that the site's stabilized and removed that stuff. And so if there's a permit from us, we usually
it needs to be closed out,
make an effort to accomplish that and have that stuff removed. And we've gone a lot more to the compost bark mulch being in those socks. They're more durable. They're kind of easy to shift or whatever. And also then that material, you can slit it open, and if the covering is not degradable, you can just take the covering away and you can use the bark mulch compost as a soil amendment in and of itself or whatever. So less waste in a sense that way, less stuff going to the landfill that doesn't degrade.
If I can, living on Bennett Hill, that we have a prime example of the 5 housing lots on the Bennett Hill near Central Street. And it shows everything there that you, in your diagram.
Although that project's
you-
been a little bit of a challenge because they got involved in various activities such as the earth removal that we were never gave us any heads up that was going to happen.
Yep.
But yeah, the idea is to have those various components in place, and that project has been a little bit of a challenge because, of course, vegetation is such a key component here. Getting the grass in, getting lawn seeded. When you have bare dirt, there's a lot of issues just trying to manage bare dirt over the time, which is why when you drive around in established neighborhoods, you hardly see anybody that has bare dirt around their house. They do everything possible to see that they either have a lawn or something else to stabilize the soil, because it moves too easily in these downpours.
Of course, if you come out with hydro seeding and then you have a downpour like we've been having for the last month or so, that it was very difficult for the 5 lots that you'd see areas that were washed away and that they had to reseed, but it's coming along.
Well, at the risk of getting into the topic of climate change, we are seeing that the weather fluctuations are presenting more of a challenge, that our rain events are sometimes much more not only confined, but they also seem to drop a lot more precipitation just in one individual quote-unquote storm moving through, and that is a real challenge to keeping these sites stabilized and to not causing problems with either the abutters or the right-of-way or wetland resource areas and water courses.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you, Brett.
I guess a question for Brent. Is this an update to an existing plan, or is this a brand new plan?
This is a brand new plan. The new permit required this. I guess you could say the parts and pieces sort of existed before, but now it's yeah. Well, or looking at it comprehensively.
Okay.
And the idea that it needed to be melded together, as well as the new MS4 permit as it worked through a process. There was a lot of input from various sized communities that pointed out that different components of this, while the use the analogy, while the chapters are pretty much all the same, there's different contents in those chapters depending upon whether you're a larger community that has subsurface sewage systems and that kind of infrastructure in place, or you're a rural community like Rowley and Newbury that mostly has septic systems on individual sites. So there's different parts. Everything still needs to be looked at and maintained, and we certainly have had different subdivisions and stuff that had their stormwater systems that have been built since the mid to late 80s, I think. That this hopefully will then allow us to selectively go back and start looking at some of those and choose ones that may possibly need upgrading, since the engineering design of these things has advanced substantially since the mid to late 80s to make things more functional.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Very much. May I be of further service to the board this evening?
You may not.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep,
Appreciate
hope you
it.
feel better, so you sound tough.
Summer cold.
Okay, final meeting agenda is old business number 2, update on Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. Bob, you're gonna give us an update
Yeah.
on last week's meeting?
The the third or fourth Wednesday of the month, I meet over in Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. As part of my duties is on the board of Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. I also attend MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization. And so they had a presentation, and I felt this was kind of important. It's the transportation plan for 2020 for the Merrimack Valley. It's about 200 pages long, so what I did was, instead of giving you all 200 pages, I gleaned what I thought was the important topics. So the first page, of the second page in, is page 34. And if you look at it, it's the Merrimack Valley on the graph on the right, population projections. It's kind of interesting, going from 2000 all the way to 2040. And you can see Raleigh is, they predict right now we're about probably in 2020 it's 6,241 people, and they project out 6,638 by 2040. So an increase of 13%. Will be the third city and town within the valley to have a population increase, of large increase. So you look over at Boxford, they're going to actually lose, they predict 7% by 2040. Okay. So moving on, this is kind of important for the transportation plan, because you have to know how many people you have, how you're going to move them, which roads.
Notice Newbury is 0%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's going to be a lot of.
Yeah, that's kind of it was kind of an eye-opener to me when I looked at that.
10% increase.
Yeah.
So we're increasing, we'll be increasing the fastest, according to that?
Yeah, one of the fastest.
Yeah.
I think we're the
Yeah, school.
Okay, so
That's
moving
what we
on to
call
page 35, and then you can see the Merrimack Valley household projections in Raleigh. Right now, we're about 2533 households, and they project up to 2891 by 2040. Again, these are projections. These are what, they're going to the data, what they have today. So they're looking at just 34.2% increase in households. So moving into page 36 of the 200-page document, and you can see employment projections. So right now, 2020, there's about 2,618 people employed in town, and they see an increase of about 4.3%. So by 2040, it would be 2,666 people in Raleigh. And you can see where is it? Lawrence goes from 28,000 to 29,000, 11% increase. And you can see some of the other projections within the other towns.
Groveland has quite an increase.
Yes, Groveland has quite an increase. So moving on to the next page, 37. These are the corridors. Okay, this is what they look at: moving people, moving vehicles, getting them from one community to another. So you can see Amesbury, Andover, Haverhill, Lawrence, and naturally that's 495 corridor. You have Route 125. You have Route 110, 114. These are what they're looking at. So the population of the zone is expected to grow by 30% or more over the same period, 2010 to 2040. Okay, moving on to 55. I wish I could have had I tried to work on the screen this today and try to get this from a PDF file into a JPEG file. Unfortunately, when it went into PowerPoint, it just took the pictures. That was it for JPEG naturally. So anyways, so we'll get through. We'll get that fixed. So moving on, you can see down the bottom of the page, Raleigh has 133 Route 1 intersection. That a $2 million project down at that intersection, and also at Central and Glen Street. Okay, and 133 on Route 1 intersection improvements. They were looking at that, And as we go to the 2 pages from this, or 3 pages, you will see why. Go to that page 87, and roadway crash clusters in the Merrimack Valley region. And you can see there's a EP, there's an acronym EPDO, and that is equivalent property damage only. And also, this is the RCC, roadway crash cluster, okay? And number 1 is Route 1 and 133 of all the Merrimack Valley.
Wow.
But there's a little, you have to look at this and the data that was put together. In order to get this number, they looked at, the number of serious or possible injuries and the property damage. So those were all weighted in order to get this number. You got this score of 270, and the next one down, you see North Andover, Route 125 Mass Avenue, which is 269. Again, it's how they weighted it on each, whether it was a fatality, there was an injury, and you could see Route 1 and 133. I was surprised I saw one fatality. I couldn't remember.
What's this fatality, a serious injury? I think it had to be a serious injury.
It had
right?
serious injury, okay.
I don't recall any fatals out there at that corner.
But as you can see, you can go down through, and you can see Raleigh, North Andover, Haverhill at 256, and then you drop down to, into the 250s in Lawrence at Bennington Park. But I was surprised when I saw the Route 1 and 133.
Bobby, just a question for you, when you go back there again, the state is currently repaving Route 1 from Topsfield to Newbury.
Yes.
To include the 1 and 133 intersection.
If you go back to page 55, and you see down the bottom, third one up, it says resurfacing Route 1.
Right.
Okay, that's Newbury, Newburyport, and Salisbury, and that's $9,800,000
Well, what I'm wondering, Bob, is since they're gonna be repaving Route 1 and doing that intersection, is there a possibility that they can, some turning, they added turning lanes a few years ago under duress. And I wonder if can we see any plans of what their intent is to do with 1 and 130? In other words, it's already been designed, but I'm wondering if the MVPC could get us a snapshot of what that intersection will look like if they're gonna put some new turning lanes or whatever on there to improve. Obviously, should be a priority based on these statistics.
And you look,
something be done there while they're in the process of repaving.
So, I mean, they're looking at the tip projection is 2020, 2024, where that money is allocated in, okay, to do from Newbury line right to Newburyport.
They're working on it now out there with drainage, and they put in the stormwater bats along the side of the road and stuff, so that over the next 2 years, I guess they're gonna be grinding and repaving that section of the road.
So it was, I sat through this twice, so it was kind of interesting to, you glean a little bit more the second time around. So if you go to page 67, municipal, federal, and aid roadway conditions. And Raleigh has the number of municipal federal aid roads in Raleigh, 11.5 miles. And they consider of that 8.5 good or better roads. So we come in about 74% of our roads are good or better. And then Boxwood, you can see they're up around 99, but think of us for, well, they have 21 miles. So and then the last page, 68, and you can see the municipal roads in Raleigh. There's that's our chapter 90 money, and we received $233,936. Okay, and the total for the region is $9 million. And since Chapter 90 went in back in 1973 to aid the cities and towns. So Chapter 90 aid to the cities and towns, approximately 33% increase from $150 million to $200 million. So there's a lot of data in there, and you can download it if you want to. Go to the Merrimack Valley website, and as soon as you go into the website, there's a place where they have a load of programs to download. It's pretty heavy reading, but it's very interesting because where the valley's going, and trying to introduce business, and that's what the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission is all about, is trying to go out and get business into the valley, and introduce it, and help with the roads and the transportation programs. So, any questions?
Nope, good information.
Thanks.
And I asked again about Route 1 and Glen Street, and it is in the queue, okay? And it's going into the design phase, okay? Who's gonna pick up and do the design hasn't been assigned yet, but it's in the design queue, okay?
It'll take a while.
So,
We all know that.
When will it come out of the queue?
I don't know. I hope, because I'm getting sick and tired of saying the queue. Yes, so I hope it's soon.
It's on the 2025 to 2029 date range.
Well,
It'll be a while.
we have the funding for it, so that's the big thing. If we didn't have the funding, then I would be more worried.
Thank you.
Okay, well.
That was great. Next is the minutes of June 13, 2019. Everyone was in attendance except Joe. Except Joe.
Give me the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion to approve the minutes has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. One abstention. And that's it. Announcements. We have the following vacancies: one planning board associate member, two vacancies on the Conservation Commission, one vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals associate seat, one vacancy on, well, we filled that, right?
Yep.
Several vacancies on the Rowley Cultural Council. Interested residents should send a letter of interest to the Board of Selectmen or call the Selectmen's office at 948-2372. Motion to adjourn?
Give me that motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.